Everybody, welcome to the Red Zone. This is Shaun and Mike. Week 8 predictions coming up. Not that many great games this week, but we got about 20, 21 games to pick. And let's go ahead and look at the top 25 released today. This is the AP poll. Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame now in there at 4. LSU jumps to 5 after their win over Georgia. Michigan, Texas, Georgia drops to 8. Oklahoma's there at 9. UCF stays at 10. Then we have Florida, Oregon. West Virginia drops after their loss to Iowa State. Kentucky, Washington, NC State up to 16. That's significant. We'll talk about that in a minute. Texas A&M, Penn State, Iowa. Cincinnati jumps up to 20. They had a bye week. Then South Florida, Mississippi State, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Washington State rounds out the top 25. 8 undefeated teams left as of right now. 3 of those are UCF, South Florida, and Cincinnati. All 3 are in the American East Conference. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So they will all play each other eventually. So out of that, we can only possibly have 1.
Yeah.
So we're guaranteed to lose 2 more. That drops us down to 6.
Yeah.
So it was a huge week of college football. I mean, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you watched the game, so you probably know.
Yeah.
But,
huge week of upsets, too. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Did 3 of the top 10 teams lost?
Yeah, 4 in the top 10.
4 in the top 10
Yeah,
lost.
It was pretty ridiculous. And for the week, we'll just last week it was awful for us. I mean, it was the Saturday the 13th. I mean, that's the equivalent of Friday the 13th for college football.
Yeah.
I mean, just a ridiculous amount of upsets. I went 9-12. You went 8-13. It was just
2 weeks in a row for me going under 500.
I mean, I would have had an extra win if Florida hadn't kicked a field goal late in the game. They didn't need it, and they just kicked it anyway. And damn you, Dan Mullen. So anyway.
I wonder, it's interesting to me because I'm wondering what the smart money was saying, because we're definitely, like we say every week, we're not the smart money. We're we're the public side. We do this for fun. No computer algorithms for us, but we just kind of dive into these games and research as much as we can and give our educated opinion on these games. So
there were just some games. I mean, who would have thought Auburn was going to flop on Tennessee? I mean, come on.
Georgia losing.
You know,
Notre Dame almost lost.
Notre Dame should have lost.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. Ohio State struggled with Minnesota. I mean, who was starting a true freshman walk-on at quarterback. So, anyway, let's get into the picks. We're going to blitz through this and try to get through this pretty quick. Keep this video fairly short. We know the picks are what you're wanting anyway. So, we're going to start off Thursday night's game. Stanford, 2-point favorite at Arizona State.
I'm gonna take Stanford. It's a 3-point spread. I'm gonna take.
It's down to 2.
It's down to 2. Okay, well, even more reason to take Stanford and the points.
Okay. I'm going to flip and take Arizona State at home. Everything says Stanford, but Stanford's lost 2 in a row. They should have lost 3 in a row if Verdell for Oregon hadn't a fumble when they were trying to run out the clock. So Stanford could have lost their last 3. I'm just not real impressed with what they've done. Bryce Love's only got 3 touchdowns on the year.
Man.
I mean, I just don't think I think at home Arizona State's going to pull this out. So I'll take Arizona State in the points, but the points don't really matter when it's only a 2-point spread.
Yeah, looking at it, Arizona State's 4-2 against the spread. You're probably right, but I've told you now that this is 3 weeks in a row that I've changed picks, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with Stanford. There's been so many games that I've picked in my phone one way, and then I change it the day that we film this. And not to say that my numbers should be any better. I mean, I switched it, so it's, fair is fair, and I counted against myself. But there are so many games that I plan to pick the other way, and so I'm sticking with Stanford.
Okay, next game. Colorado State is at Boise State on Friday night. Boise State is a 23.5-point favorite. I'll go ahead and pick first on this one. 23.5 I think is pretty big.
Yeah.
You look at the stats and you compare the teams, and it looks like Boise State's a dominant team, and Boise State will probably win. But I'm going to take Colorado State in the points in this one because I think 23.5 is just a bit too much. I think 18 is about a good number there.
Yeah.
So I think Boise State might have a hard time covering 23.5.
Yeah, Boise State 3-3 against the spread, but so is Colorado State. But 23.5 seems like a lot. Which is why I'm going to take Colorado State in this. Their quarterback, Samuel, forget his name, Curtis Samuel or something like that.
Curtis Samuel, yeah.
He's pretty good. He's a good quarterback. Just looking at his numbers, should have had it pulled up. He is, sorry about this, he's passed for almost 2,000 yards. He's at 1,934 yards, 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So he's playing pretty good. Rypien, however you say his name, for Boise State's 1858 on the year, 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 23 is just a lot. It's a big spread. Which they'll probably cover it.
but since we're picking Colorado State.
Yeah. So anyway, Colorado State scored some points early in the year. They looked good against Hawaii, but didn't get the win. Arkansas, yeah. If it wasn't for that spread, I mean, that's a pretty big spread.
All right, now towards the Saturday games. Auburn is a 2.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. I don't know what's wrong with Auburn. I mean, Stidham has looked terrible.
Their offense has just completely just.
I don't know what happened to them after they lost to LSU. It's like they just completely gave up or something. I don't know.
We did have a commenter that brought up that Gus Malzahn's offense needs a good running back, and they just don't have one. Yeah. Their top rusher in the year, Whitlow, is 81 carries for 456 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. I mean, just looking at that, that's not very good.
Yeah. Well, they get an Ole Miss defense that's pretty bad. Yeah. But Ole Miss's offense is pretty good.
Is good.
Tennessee put up that many points against Auburn.
Yeah.
I'm taking Ole Miss in this one.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Next game, 20th ranked Cincinnati, my boys, the Bearcats, at Temple. And surprisingly, Temple is a 3.5-point favorite in this. So I think Cincinnati's going to win the game. So obviously I'm taking Cincinnati.
I'm going to take Cincinnati as well. I've got them.
They've been just rocking and rolling. And I think they're probably going to stay undefeated until they hit UCF.
Yeah.
So
Temple's 5-2 against the spread. Cincinnati's 5-1. So if that does anything for you, only not covering one time is pretty dang good when considering we're in week 8.
Yeah. So okay, next game, Maryland at Iowa. Iowa's a 12.5-point favorite. Iowa's defense is just incredible. Yeah. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, I'm not breaking a whole lot of we know by now what these teams are.
Yeah.
Iowa has a tremendous defense, and Maryland can only run the ball.
Right.
So I don't think this is any no-brainer here. I got Iowa to cover this.
I do too. Iowa is one of the best rushing defenses in the country, and that's about, Maryland's rushing for like almost 250 yards a game. That's what their offense does. They run the ball, but man,
Iowa's going to win the Big Ten West. It's not Wisconsin's to win anymore. It's going to be Iowa.
Yeah, you see with the teams that have really good rush defense, they can usually shut down those teams that run the ball really well. So if you can't pass, not to say that Maryland can't, but they're not.
They haven't been able to in most games.
Right.
So.
They're going for just over 100 yards, under 200 yards a game through the season. So I've got Iowa to cover in this one.
Okay. Michigan, this is going to be one of the good games, and I can't believe it kicks off at noon Eastern time. Number 6, Michigan, 6.5-point favorite at Michigan State. Michigan State knocked off Penn State this past weekend. Which, honestly, if you watch the game, it was kind of a miracle because Penn State had the ball and all they needed to do. McSorley ran out of bounds, and if he'd have stayed in bounds to keep the clock running, more than likely Michigan State doesn't get the ball and come back. So it was a goof on his part. He should have known better. It stopped the clock and saved a timeout for Michigan State. They ended up scoring that touchdown. Michigan was incredible against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're really going to have a letdown here. This is an in-state rivalry game. It's not quite Ohio State, Michigan, but it's up there for both of these teams. I know it's at East Lansing, but I think Michigan comes ready to play. Yeah. They're going to cover 6.5.
Yeah, they definitely have the talent and just the players to win by 7. You'd think so.
I didn't realize that Christian McCaffrey's brother played. He was the backup quarterback at Michigan.
Dylan McCaffrey,
and he won his first ever collegiate play. He broke it off for like 40 yards for a touchdown. Yeah. It was incredible.
Yeah, he was a highly ranked. He was a highly ranked quarterback recruit coming out of high school.
He's tall too, but he's fast. And so anyway, all right. So we have Michigan. Both of us have Michigan covered.
Yeah. Just looking at it, Michigan's only given up 15.4 points a game. And granted, there's not a lot of teams in the Big Ten that are just high-powered offense, but Michigan State is under the average, probably the national average, with 26.2 points per game for their offense. So, I mean, just looking at what Michigan's done in the past, the 38-13 against Wisconsin, 42-21 against Maryland. Northwestern, they beat 20-17. I mean, at Northwestern. So you never know. I mean,
the only loss was to the number 14 Notre Dame. So
right. So anyway, that win against Michigan State, Penn State looks pretty good, but then they lost at home to Northwestern. Yeah. So if you're looking at
and they
common
lost to Arizona
opponents
State
and stuff,
so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Oklahoma 7.5-point favorite at TCU. Opened as a 9.5-point, and it quickly is going down, which means there's some money going to TCU. So odds makers know something we don't, because you would think Oklahoma should easily take care of TCU the way they've been playing. Shaun Robinson turns the ball over a lot, is very inconsistent, but TCU's defense is pretty good when they want to be. They're like 15th overall in the nation in total defense, and they held Texas Tech to 17 points, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. They've got a lot of speed on their defense, a lot of speed. But Kyler Murray is just, there's not a lot of quarterbacks who are faster than Kyler Murray in the country. Yeah,
my concern here is that Oklahoma's defense. Rufus McNeil takes over as defensive coordinator, but it's the same players. Players ultimately, it doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. If your cornerbacks aren't turning and looking for the ball and getting pass interferences, or they're getting beat because they won't turn and look, that's not going to change really.
They are replacing Trey Norwood at one of the cornerback spots. He was the guy in the end of the game against Texas who got the pass interference call. They'll be starting Trey Brown. They're taking another corner. I think they might be changing up two corners for starters. They're moving Brendan Radley Hiles, Buki, if you know him. They're moving him more to the nickelback spot, which is his natural position. They just had guys that were out of position, and no excuses. You're right. These are the same players that were on that defense. But I think they come out and cover this. They beat the doors off of TCU last year when TCU had one of the best defenses in the Big 12, if not the best defense in the Big 12. And they just, went to work on them. 40. They scored over 40 points on them both games, once in the regular season, once in the Big 12 championship. I think the defense is going to come out and play hard for Ruffin McNeil. He's a player's coach. Everywhere he's been, people have talked about how just loved he is by the players. There were rifts kind of in the locker room. You hear rumors about Mike Stoops kind of, there was just some maybe negativity. Some of the players didn't really like him that much. So I told you, I texted you earlier, said I think that they're going to just demolish TCU. I thought about it a little bit more. I don't know that they come out and win by 20 or anything like that, but I think they definitely cover a 7.5.
When it first came out as 9.5, I thought that was about right. My instinct here is I'm going to take OU to cover 7.5, but I think this is a total shootout because I don't think OU's defense is going to be any better than it was against Texas. So I think this could be a 50-40 game. Ultimately, I think OU wins by 10. They're not going to win by more than that. So, but I think it's going to be a huge high-scoring game, and that defense is not going to look any better.
I told you, I think that this will be the best defensive performance of the year, but then it'll kind of level out, and maybe once they're, they kind of come back down to earth a little bit. I think this first game after Texas, they're going to want to prove something, and just knowing the guys that are on the team, they're going to come out playing fired up, and I think look for Shaun Robinson to turn the ball over a little bit more here.
Okay. Alabama, number one, they're playing at Tennessee. Tennessee beat Auburn. No spread right now, but we'll just make one up. I think Alabama's going to be a 31-point favorite, and I think Alabama covers that. I think what Tennessee did was kind of a fluke. I think that's more of an indication of how bad Auburn is right now, not how good Tennessee is. So I will take Alabama to cover 31.
Yeah, I'll take that too. Tennessee just not looked very good at all this year. Just their last 5 games, they did beat Auburn, but again, that's just an indication of how bad Auburn is right now. Their offense is just
It's non-existent.
horrendous right now. But they lost to Georgia 38-12. They lost to Florida 47-21. So they're just getting it put on them. I mean, they lost to UTEP 24-0. And then is that...
And as bad as those losses are, they haven't seen a team like Alabama yet.
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah.
Tua probably only plays the first half again.
Or they beat UTEP. They beat UTEP 24-0. That was one of their only wins.
Yeah. Okay, so you got Alabama covering?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colorado at Washington. Washington is a 16-point favorite. It was 17. It's come down to 16. Just looking at it, you look at who Colorado's played. They lost last week to USC, and really they haven't really played anybody. I mean, it's just USC beating them by 11 was kind of an eye-opener because I thought Colorado would beat USC. That really tells me that Colorado has been just kind of like it hasn't been real.
Yeah.
And so I'll take Washington to cover 16.
Yeah, Washington's defense is playing really, really good this year. Giving up 16 points a game, that's really good. I mean, that's way under the national average.
They went to overtime with Oregon, and I picked Oregon last week, and I said I think Oregon's the best team in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I think Washington's the second best team in the Pac-12. So,
yeah.
And I don't think Colorado's anywhere near the level of those two teams.
Yeah, so. They beat BYU 35-7. Beat Utah, who's a pretty tough out. I mean, they're a pretty tough team. And then losing to USC. USC's just kind of an average team this year, we found. So I've got Washington to cover. In this one.
Houston, 13-point favorite at Navy. Navy's kind of a little bit of a disappointment this year. Army's is the service academy that's on a roll. They're the top service academy this year by far.
Kind of flipped.
Yeah, they have flipped because Navy has been dominant for so many years.
They won like 13 years in a row or something.
Houston's only loss was at Texas Tech. It's 13 points. I think Houston covers that.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Kansas at Texas Tech. Texas Tech, 19.5-point favorite. Was a little bit skeptical of that because I think Kansas can put up points against Texas Tech. I don't think this is just a dominant. I don't think this is like what Texas Tech did to Oklahoma State or anything like that. I think Kansas could put up 20, 25 points. So it's how many does Texas Tech put up?
Yeah.
Kansas's defense is ranked like 60th in the country overall defense. They're not that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're in the mid-pack in defense. So 19.5 is a lot, but right now, I feel like in the top 25, Texas Tech should have been at 25 instead of Washington State. I think Texas Tech's a better team and more deserving.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Texas Tech to cover here. If I get it wrong, I get it wrong. I mean, if Kansas keeps it closer than that, I won't be surprised, but I have to take Texas Tech.
Yeah. I'm going to take Texas Tech as well. Hard-fought game against TCU there just to win it at the end. I mean,
17-14.
Yeah. I mean, that looked more like a Big Ten. Somebody said we got a Big Ten game in the Big 12.
Defensive game. That's what. Yeah.
So I've got Kansas' coach is going to get fired, and he's actually. I know they've only won 2 games, but he's actually.
But they're starting to turn things around. They're starting to look better.
But they're
starting to get better.
They will fire him because they're only going to win 2 games this year.
And they're going to go back and they'll get another coach, and then they'll go two years of not winning a game.
It's really hard.
They need to stick with him.
It's really, really hard when you've lost games for so long. I mean, look at the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
They have as much talent, as they've had in a long time, but they just can't seem to put it together. I mean, they've won 2 games and they've got all
It's a culture of losing,
what
it is.
Right. It's really hard to start to find your way to win, your will to win. You can be as talented in the world, but if you've come off of, several straight seasons of 1-2 wins a year, it's hard.
And it's a snowball effect because if you're a losing program, nobody's showing up to watch your games. So then you can't justify spending money to upgrade stadiums and build facilities. But if you don't build facilities and upgrade your stadium, you can't get the recruits to compete. And it's just a snowball effect. And it's an endless cycle that never stops unless at some point you've got to stick a stick through the spoke in the wheels and stop the bike and be like, wait a minute, we got to do something different here.
Yeah. Which they're trying to upgrade their facilities. They've thrown or they're trying to throw a multi-million-dollar project together to upgrade their stadium. and then their locker room and weight room. So we'll see if they get that money. I don't know if they already have approved. If you're a Kansas fan, let us know. Yeah. How they're coming along with their facilities there. But okay. Texas Tech covering.
Okay, Minnesota at Nebraska. Nebraska's a 5-point favorite. I don't know. I don't know how they keep being a favorite. It's just
what a heartbreaker.
They just keep. They just don't know how to win.
Yeah.
It's
that's the same
situation as Kansas.
Yeah.
They play really well and then they give it up at the end because they panic a little bit. They don't really know how to handle success. I mean,
somebody for the USA Today wrote something about
I saw the article. It's so stupid. What a trash article.
That was the dumbest.
Saying that it would cost Nebraska $26 million to buy out Scott Frost and fire him this year. They're not firing him this year.
They've played five games. Yeah. And you're talking about buying out Scott Frost. That was ridiculous and so first of all, unprofessional, and second of all, disrespectful to Scott Frost.
Right.
I mean, he has earned every part of that job for what he did at USC, coming back to his alma mater. It's just going to take some time. I mean, look at, if you treated every coach like that, Tom Herman would have been gone last year. You got to give these coaches time. Yeah. You have to.
So two developments here with this game. One, Saturday, right before the game, immediately before the game. I didn't know about this, but when Scott Frost left UCF to come to Nebraska, the backup quarterback at UCF came to Nebraska with him. UCF blocked that, so the kid said, okay, I'll just walk on at Nebraska, and he did. So he was supposed to sit out this whole season. Well, when Martinez was named the quarterback,
which he's back,
he had two quarterbacks on scholarship transfer out. It left him with Martinez and a walk-on. And so Nebraska at first was going to let this kid from UCF sit out for the season like he's supposed to. After that situation and Martinez getting hurt, they appealed to the NCAA.
Yeah.
Well, right before the game this past Saturday, the NCAA granted immediate eligibility to this kid. And I can't remember his last name, I forget it. But this kid is supposedly really good. It's just he was behind Mackenzie Milton, so he wasn't getting to play. Anyway, he is now immediately eligible. If something happens to Martinez, he's available to play. That's going to be a huge game changer for Nebraska going forward. And it's a little bit of a win for Scott Frost. And then on the flip side of that, Minnesota, after their great performance against Ohio State, their running back was arrested 1:30 a.m. Sunday morning for domestic abuse.
Oh man!
And he's probably done. So so there's that development with this game. At the end of it, and I'll tell you what, Minnesota's true freshman walk-on quarterback played pretty well against Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think that Minnesota gained a lot of confidence. They really showed how well PJ Fleck coaches. Their defense looked great. And I'll tell you one thing about Minnesota's defense. They tackle. There's no arm tackles. Nobody gets away from them. They will hit you.
Yeah.
So, all that being said, I am taking Minnesota and the points in this.
I'm too. They're 4-2 against the spread. They're giving up only 354 yards a game. They're passing for 200. They're throwing for 150. And Nebraska's giving up 445 yards a game. I mean, that's worse than some of the Big 12 who, let's be honest, the nation knows that the Big 12 has some of the worst defense in the country.
Yeah.
Nebraska's defense kind of falls in line with some of the worst defenses in the Big 12. So I've got Minnesota to cover, and I think I've got them to win. I mean, Nebraska that was so demoralizing to play the way they did and then to come out with a loss on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Arizona at UCLA, no spread in this one, so we're going to make one up. I think Arizona is probably going to be favored by about 6.5. But nonetheless, Arizona has looked horrible. Khalil Tate sprained his ankle in the last game. He was hobbling. He had to stay out for a while. Their kid that came in, I think he's a true freshman who came in. He looked rough. I mean, he's only a freshman. He'll get better, but boy, he didn't look too good in that game. So 6.5 favorite for Arizona. I think UCLA gets their first win and wins the game. So
they got their first win against Cal this last Saturday.
Oh, they beat Cal. That's right. Okay, well, they get their second win. because I'm taking UCLA not only with the points, but I think they're going to win the game.
I've got them to cover. Their offense has started to kind of play a little bit better. They scored, I think, they scored 24 2 weeks ago against Washington, who has a really good defense.
Yeah.
And 24 for UCLA is pretty good. I mean,
That's
working up, considering that they scored 21 against Oklahoma, bad defense. They scored 14 against Fresno State and 16 against Colorado. And then in the last 2 weeks, their offense has kind of started to find itself.
Yeah. Well, you knew Chip Kelly was eventually going to get them.
So 24 against Washington, and then scoring 37 against Cal, and it was at Cal. And that's a big confidence booster, especially for I believe a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, they're all young. They're probably the youngest team in college football.
Yeah. So Thompson Robinson, I forget his first name, but anyway, he's starting to kind of put it together. He's only got 5 touchdowns on the year, 3 interceptions, but I look for them to cover.
Game 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Penn State 14-point favorite at Indiana. Penn State, they really took a hit mentally when they lost to Ohio State. That was a tough loss for them. And then they turn around and lose to Michigan State, and they're demoralized. Now they got to go on the road to Indiana, I'm sorry, they've just been playing good. Indiana plays they played Ohio State tough. 14 points is way too big of a spread. I got Indiana in the points. Penn State probably wins the game, but I got Indiana in the points.
Yeah, Penn State has covered 4 times. They have not covered 2 times. Let's look and see where Indiana's at. Talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves. It's way down there. What'd you say the spread was? I don't have
14.
14. And what'd Penn State do this last week?
They lost to Michigan State.
That's right. Yeah, I'll take Indiana to cover here.
Indiana in the points. All right. NC State. At Clemson. Clemson is a 17-point favorite. NC State's still one of those teams undefeated. Of course, Clemson's undefeated, so somebody loses here.
Yeah.
NC State is a lot better than everybody's giving them credit for. 17 is a huge spread against a Wolfpack team that, in my opinion, I'm taking NC State in the points, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think NC State wins the game. So I'll take them in the points, and if they lose the game, fine, as long as Clemson doesn't cover. But I'm telling you, I think NC State pulls the upset, and I think everybody's sleeping on them, and they are really, really good this year.
Yeah, Clemson has only covered twice. It's pretty tough because they're pretty erratic. I mean, 2 points, given to A&M.
2 for A&M. The struggle with Syracuse, that came down to the
Georgia
end.
Tech 49-21, so that was a big win. Mm-hmm. But then Syracuse, they only win by 4 points.
And I think NC State's a better team than A&M, and I think they're a better team than Syracuse.
Yeah, I'm going to take that's a big spread. I'm going to take NC State to not win, but I think that they cover.
You think
they're 3-2 at covering the spread, and Clemson's only covered twice. And we've said that last year they played a lot of teams really close and probably didn't cover very many games last year either.
Yep. Okay. So watch out for that one next week. You heard me say NC State.
So upset alert.
Upset alert right there. Memphis at Missouri. Missouri's a 7-point favorite. Missouri did not hang with Alabama as close as I thought they would. Alabama was a 28-point favorite. They won by 29, so they barely covered, and they're not a team that usually covers. Memphis took it down to the wire with UCF. They had the lead. They should have beat UCF. And credit to UCF and Mackenzie Melton and coming back and winning that game by 1. But now they got to go on the road to Missouri. Missouri's got a pretty decent offense, and clearly Memphis I don't think has a defense for that.
Yeah.
I think it stays. I think this game is a pretty close game. Could be a 3-point game. 7's too big of a spread. I have to take Memphis in the points.
Yeah, I'm going to take Memphis as well. Memphis is one of those group of 5 schools who could be a Power 5 school. I mean, it's just a matter of time before somebody picks them up. The next round of conference realignment, look for Memphis to become one of those Power 5.
Memphis and UCF should both be in a Power 5, and maybe even Cincinnati.
And UCF is, I'm sorry, and they're disrespected.
I know they have a weak schedule, but here's the deal. It is mostly the same players as last year under Scott Frost. And they are still, this is year 2, They have still not have lost in 2 years, and it's different coaching staff, but same results because you have the same players. Yeah. Those kids deserve a chance. Yeah. I'm not saying that they're better than Alabama or better than Georgia or LSU or Oklahoma, but damn it, they deserve to be able to play those teams and prove it.
Yeah.
Like if they're not good enough, then they'll lose. But, you know, nobody wants to play them. Nobody in the AP or coaches poll wants to give them a chance. I think they should be up there and give it a shot.
To me,
if they finish 2 years in a row undefeated, they deserve a shot.
To me, you have to schedule out of conference.
Nobody wants to play them. They're out there today on Twitter. Their official Twitter account is out there. They want to add Alabama to their schedule, and Alabama won't play them.
So their Twitter account today put out a deal after the polls came out, and they were still at number 10, I think.
Mm-hmm. They didn't move.
They didn't move at all.
Four of the top 10 lose, and UCF doesn't move up.
Yeah, they said...
it's not right.
Let's see, UCF...
They should have at least been 7. They should have moved up.
Yeah, I do agree that they deserve to be given a chance because they're really good. I mean, they have a lot of talent on their team. They haven't lost in 2 years. Yeah. I don't agree that they're the national champions. I mean, that's just you play in the national championship game, you win that game, you deserve to hang.
I mean, I don't think they are either. But if the selection committee and the AP and nobody's willing to give them a chance,
yeah,
you know, that's just it. They just want a shot. Give them a chance, you know?
Yeah, they today...
And if you don't think they could possibly hang with those teams, they'll fall flat on their face, and that'll be the end of the discussion.
Yeah, today they released about 4 hours ago on Twitter. They said Bye is having a heck of a season. Bye week is having a heck of a... Yeah. Because they're basically saying Bye week had a better week than them, and you know, they didn't play and stayed where they're at. So
I mean, I didn't agree with it when they kept Cincinnati out a few years back when Brian Kelly was their coach.
Yeah.
It's just nobody in the Power 5 wants to give a group of high school a shot, no matter if they're good or not, because they don't want to risk losing and being embarrassed by a group of 5 school on a big national stage like a playoff. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's move on. This was a Memphis, Missouri, and somehow we got to talk about UCF. Yeah. So, Vanderbilt at Kentucky. Kentucky is a 10.5-point favorite. Oh, I didn't mark a selection here. Kentucky's only loss was to Texas A&M. Vanderbilt hung with Florida.
It's 11 points at this point. Is that what you said?
It's 11. I said 10.5. So either way, 10.5 for Kentucky. You know,
it opened at 13.
This is one of those where, you know, regionally they're pretty close to one another. I don't know. I'm taking Kentucky.
I am too.
I'll take them to cover.
It's at Kentucky.
Yeah. That crowd gets into it.
Vanderbilt is tough, but 11 points, I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No. Yeah. Okay, USC at Utah. Utah 6.5-point favorite. Utah has been on a roll the last few weeks, and they really hammered. I can't remember. I watched the game. Who did they play?
They
won, and they won big. They covered.
Let's see, Arizona 42-10.
Yeah, it was a huge win.
And then they beat Stanford 40-21.
So I mean, you know, USC has been struggling. They beat Colorado, but I don't think that's a big of a deal. I think at home, Utah easily covers 6.5. This spread could have been 12.
Yeah.
You know, so I think
so too.
Utah's going to cover that. Oregon, after their big win against Washington, is at Washington State. Washington State somehow is a 2-point favorite. I really don't understand this, so I'll just say Oregon's going to win the game. So obviously, I'm taking Oregon in the points.
I'm taking Washington State.
Okay.
They are perfect against the spread this year.
Okay.
And I know Oregon just beat Washington.
Well, they should have beat Stanford, and then they did beat Washington. So, I mean, Washington State's not near what those two teams are. How Washington State opens as the favorite, I know they're home. That's ridiculous. I mean, Herbert is probably the best quarterback in the Pac-12.
Well, it's a point and a half at this point.
Point and a half. So I'm still taking Oregon.
Yeah.
Oregon's just really good. Like I said, I've said it before. I'll say it again. They're the best team in the Pac-12. So,
looking at it, Oregon's given up 239 yards through the air. Washington State's defense is looking a little bit better than Oregon's. So, but Oregon's offense is scoring more than Washington State.
You just like Pirates.
At home, I've got them. I'll pick Washington State until they don't cover a spread here.
Okay.
And it's 1.5. I've got Washington State to win this one.
Okay. last two games. These are the two biggest games of the weekend. Like we said, there's really not that many huge matchups this weekend. Number 22, Mississippi State, is at number 5, LSU. LSU is 6.5-point favorite. If you did not watch the Georgia LSU game, you're not a college football fan, because that was incredible. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's a Buckeye. I'm telling you. He just, I told you
many people just...
before the season started. I told you, and let me just point it out real quick, because everybody's going to say, "Well, yeah, he threw a pick 6 against Florida." Let me tell you something. Every week I've been watching Coach O's press conferences, and unbeknownst to me, after the loss to Florida, during the Florida game, they had 3 offensive linemen out. Mm-hmm. They were shuffling guys around. One guy moved from center to tackle. They moved a guy from tackle to guard. They were just everywhere, and it showed, because their offensive line looked hideous against Florida. This past week, before they played Georgia, Coach O's press conference, all offensive linemen are healthy. They're all going to play, and what they do, they dominated and they spanked Georgia. I'm sorry. They just literally kicked the teeth out of the dogs. And
it's surprising to me. They scored 36 points, and he doesn't have a single touchdown. And he was 50% completion.
He had 2 rushing.
Yeah, that's true.
He had 2 rushing. Plus, he had that big run there at the end, almost down to the 2.
So it's just crazy to me. I mean, his stat line, and with the quarterback in the SEC especially, if you're a game manager, that goes way beyond your stats. But he was 50% on the day, 15 of 30. He was 200 yards. He averaged 6.7 yards, and he had a QBR of 62.4. So you're looking at that.
But look at his rushing stats.
Right. No. You're right. He rushed for 13 carries, 66 yards, 5.1 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. His long was a 59-yard run.
Yep.
So game management wise, I mean, he comes out and plays really well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
he is what LSU has not had for a long time.
Yeah.
And the truth is, he just does not turn the ball over.
Yeah.
He did against Florida, but let's be realistic. If you watch that game, how many balls did those receivers drop?
Yeah.
And he got put in tough situations where he had to start trying to force throws that he normally wouldn't throw, because nobody was catching
Florida's defensive
anything.
line was in his face.
Yeah, they
all
were.
day.
He got blindsided on the backside twice that looked like it would break him in half.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, Joe B is getting it done. I think LSU easily covers 6.5 against Mississippi State.
I think they cover as well. I was a big fan of Mississippi State early in the year, but they just, I don't know.
I'm surprised they're still in the top 25.
Yeah.
But, and then I'll point out that they get past Mississippi State, they get a bye week before Alabama.
Yeah.
So they play Alabama that first weekend in November.
You're just champing at the bit to pick LSU in that game.
If they're all healthy, if everybody's healthy for LSU come that weekend in November, I'm taking LSU. I'll just say it right now, 2 weeks early. I mean, I am taking LSU to beat Alabama if everybody's healthy.
And Tua might be injured. He re-aggravated a knee sprain. So if you've got Jalen Hurts in there,
I will take Joe Burrow over Jalen Hurts.
Man.
I wouldn't take him as far as over Tua, but I still think LSU's defense is good enough to win the game.
I've got LSU covering this week.
Okay, last game, Ohio State, 12-point favorite at Purdue. I'll just say it as a Buckeye fan. If you don't follow the Buckeyes, this game is like the OU Texas game or any other rivalry game where it's not really that big of a rivalry, but every time Ohio State plays Purdue, especially at Purdue, this game is tight. It comes down to the end. In 2003, when Ohio State won the national championship and went undefeated when they had Maurice Clarett, they were playing at Purdue, and it was a 4th and 1 game on the line, and Craig Krenzel actually threw a pass to Jenkins for a touchdown, and they barely squeaked by Purdue. Every team that wins a national championship has a rough game.
Yeah.
They have to squeak by somebody at some point. This is going to be a close game. It's not, 12 points.
It's at 14
Ohio State
now.
At 14.
Yeah.
I'm taking Purdue in the points. I think Ohio State wins the game, but this is going to be a tight game, and it's one of the reasons why it's the primetime game on ABC. So
now, Purdue, they've had a pretty good last 3 weeks. They beat Illinois at Illinois, 46-7. They beat Nebraska 42-28. They beat number 23 Boston College 30-13. They lost to Missouri at home, and they lost to Eastern Michigan at home.
Yeah, and keep an eye on number 4, true freshman Rondell Moore for Purdue. That kid is amazing, and Ohio State's defense has got issues right now. I mean, as an Ohio State fan, I'll tell you right now, if the playoffs were to start today, I wouldn't want the Buckeyes in the playoffs because I think they'd get embarrassed. Because I don't think they can hang. That defense could not stop some of the other elite teams. They would not stop a Notre Dame or even a Georgia or an Alabama or an LSU. They would not be able to stop them. And so Purdue, I think, is going to be able to put up points. I mean, Minnesota did.
Yeah.
And Purdue's probably got a better offense than Minnesota.
Yeah.
So, Purdue,
I
had 12 here. You said it's up to 14. But, if I was betting, I wish we had a sports book because I could put money on Purdue right now.
Purdue is, they're 4-2 against the spread. I'll take Purdue. Haven't had very many differences this week.
Maybe we'll Ohio State last 5 weeks. I've lost them picking them.
Yeah.
They either don't cover or they just don't cover. So
they're 3-4, I think, against the spread.
Yeah, not very good. So that's it. That's week 8 picks, and then we'll move on to week 9 next week. That's another week where there's not too many good ones.
Yeah,
good games to pick for that week. So.
Good luck.
We've had two pretty bad
warned.
weeks, so hopefully this week we get back on track to where we've been because it's not been good the last 2 weeks for us.
Yeah, last week was the first time I was ever under 500, and then this year two weeks in a row, not very good.
This week was my first week under 500. So.
And that's all just to say, like, dude, we put a disclaimer up. I'm sorry, like, we're not.
Gamble at your own risk.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, again, social media. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. It's tweeting out like crazy from our account with the games and stuff like that. So if you bet, good luck, and we'll see you next week for week 9. Have a great day.